Okay, let's get started. I heard they have a busy talk today. So my pleasure to introduce our speakers today, Dr. Jeffrey Druck and Dr. Abby Lara. A few words about both. Dr. Druck is an associate professor of emergency medicine, and he completed his residency training here at CU in emergency medicine in 2002, after which he took a position at Emory University. Since his return in 2003, he became the associate program director of the residency program in the emergency department, and also the director of the CU Entrance Office of Professional Excellence. Dr. Lara, she's an associate professor of medicine, pulmonary sciences, and critical care. She completed her residency training in medicine in 2004 at the Cleveland Clinic Foundation, and after that she did a fellowship in pulmonary sciences and critical care here at CU Anschutz. And she also, like Dr. Druck, is the director of the CU Anschutz Office of Professional Excellence. I'm looking forward to their talk. Thank you so much.
Good morning. Thank you very much for the warm welcome. So we have a very full hour, so we will be speeding through a lot of this information to start. We thank you very much for allowing us to present to you what our office does, the resources available, and our process for how we work through lapses in professional behavior, and unprofessional as well. The second half of this talk, we will be utilizing Poll Everywhere, so you will have another opportunity to download this if you haven't yet. So with that in mind, let's get started. No conflicts of interest. The objective for today, you could probably read this a lot quicker than we can, or I can read this. These are the three members who co-direct the Office of Professional Excellence, myself and Dr. Druck here, and Josette Harris, who's a clinical psychologist, and she's the Associate Director of the office. Our office serves not only the School of Medicine, but the rest of the schools on campus, College of Nursing, SCAD Schools of Pharmacy, School of Dental Medicine, and the School of Public Health as well. This chart here is an adapted organizational leadership chart that tells you where our office sits. We report directly to the Senior Associate Dean for Academic Affairs, but as you can see, we work quite closely with the Associate Dean for Faculty Affairs as well. The Resilience Program also sits under our scope, and we'll touch upon that towards the end of this talk.
So, what is professionalism? Well, the American Board of Medical Specialties defines it as a belief system in which group members, or professionals, declare or profess to each other and to the public their shared competency standards and their ethical values that they promise that they are going to uphold across the board.
The School of Medicine is committed to promoting professionalism here on campus in all arenas in patient care, education, and research. Taking here are screenshots from several documents that have been created over the years that profess our commitment to promoting professionalism. As you can see here, we have our Professionalism Code of Conduct, we have our Teacher-Learner Agreement that ensures a climate that promotes learning, and our Faculty Promise as well.
That being said, we know that you all remember that you have this faculty commitment because every single faculty member has seen this slide before. Does it look familiar? I can see a lot of people are not nodding their heads. It should look familiar because every single one of you attests to this every single year when you click on your PRISM evaluation. So you sign at the bottom of this exact page every single year.
So our office was created approximately 5 years ago in direct response to the double AMC graduation questionnaire. However, the work of professionalism did precede the codification of our office. The goal of our office is to provide a supportive environment with recommendations for how individuals can elevate themselves back to their best professional selves here on campus. It is not intended to be punitive, nor is it intended to be disciplinary, but rather to help work through those things in which would most benefit a full and realistic recovery from a very difficult situation.
So what services does our office provide? Well, first of all, we address lapses in professional behavior. Secondarily, we provide communication training. We are able to provide mediation for parties that are interested. And then we provide conflict management guidance. And what that means is that if someone is having a difficult situation and they want some advice on how to handle it, we're happy to give people advice along those lines. So we wanted to process you through how we receive a case and how we process through a case. As you can imagine, we receive cases from all over. We receive cases from HR, from the Office of Equity, from risk management, who all say, boy, this seems like this is more of a professionalism issue than anything else. We also get individual reports from all sorts of folks through our portal, through people calling us, through people emailing us. And some of those cases span the range of things that are far outside the realm of our purview. So, for example, we got a complaint about someone driving aggressively on Denver city streets. That is not something we are going to address.
So we're going to be walking through what a case referral looks like. When a referral comes in, there's always two of us that will evaluate the case, either myself, Jeff and Josette, or Josette and myself. The purpose of having two individuals review it is there are different lenses that can be applied to the case. We then determine does the case meet an unprofessional event? If so, then one of us will be assigned to be the case manager, if you will. If our office is not the right place to manage the case, we will then refer that on to another office, Office of Equity, for example. Once we've determined that the case is best managed through our office, then we will sit down with a reporter. The reporter is the individual who submitted the referral. The reason to do that face-to-face is to walk them through the process to provide them support as well. Then we will sit down with the respondent or the individual that is being referred to the office. The case discussion we'll get to in a little bit with PEC. It's important to note that in that very first time that the individual is being reported to our office, there is absolutely no assessment that is done.
So walking you through the professionalism pyramid, this was a framework that was developed at Vanderbilt University and is used by most professionalism offices in medicine right now. You can see that there are 4 levels. There are a couple things that are really crucial to point out about this. The first is that single incident in terms of making sure that we tell people and give them direct feedback. The second component is that for things that are egregious, it can automatically elevate to a level 2, level 3, level 4. And the reason for that is that we think that those sorts of things need to have much more prompt addressing and need to have some guardrails put in place more rapidly. Sometimes we get questions around what exactly is egregious. We use the same definition as one of the Supreme Court justices when they were talking about pornography, which is you know it when you see it. The examples that we've used previously have been harm to others, actual causing physical harm to others, and then anything that is blatantly racist or sexist.
So that for the first level, or the single incident, the intention is to provide the individual feedback about the perception of their behavior and the impact of their behavior. It's intended for the individual to receive feedback, and the hopes is to self-regulate in the future if they find themselves in a similar incident or in a similar situation. The feedback is, in best attempts, to be provided in a timely fashion. It's always respectful, and it's collegial in nature. We try to deliver a single incident or a single observation as opposed to an entire list of grievances. The message is always provided in a non-judgmental fashion, and it allows the opportunity for the individual to share with them their own perceptions of the incident. Again, no assessment is conducted at a level 1.
So, for example, the way that this works is that you'll get not you, but someone gets an email from the Office of Professional Excellence saying, hey, we received a report and we'd like to meet with you. And we sit down with the person and we say, this is what we have in terms of feedback. Now, we understand that this may not be accurate, and we aren't going to do any assessment as to whether it is accurate, but we want to give you this information so that you can reflect on it. And if you think that this is an issue and think that there are problems, we'd like to give you the resources to help you change. If you feel like this is not accurate, that's 100% your choice. We're going to keep it in our database, but we aren't going to take any other action from this perspective. We aren't going to talk to anyone else. We aren't going to talk to your chair or your division head for those initial reports.
For level 2, this is an individual that has been reported to our office for a second time for a similar theme and behavior. At this point, the intention is for behavioral modification. And what is behavioral modification? How is this different from a level 1? The level 1 was simply providing them feedback. In level 2, we will give them specific recommendations on where to obtain training and or education. If the individual is interested in coaching, we can provide them resources for coaching. Educational courses aren't listed here.
Level 3 is where there ends up being some sort of guardrails that are put in place that are written and formal. This is where people get letters of expectation, and usually these are accompanied by a mandatory requirement that people be seen by CPHP from the perspective of assessment for substance abuse. We're constantly surprised at how often substance abuse can change people's behavior. It's important to note that our office is a recommending body, and so those guidelines always come from department chairs or division heads, not directly from our office.
And in this level 3, we do an assessment in this situation or an investigation. The individual has been reported to our office for a third time, similar theme of behavior, and has either lapsed or is consistent in their behavior, despite us providing them resources. At this point, we do send them a message that we are aware of the situation and will be performing an assessment. We will also reach out to their division head, department chair to let them know that we are involved and we will be doing an assessment to try to understand the environment that individual finds themselves in that is potentially causing them to act out, or to try to understand why this individual continues to act in unsavory behavior.
From the reporting standpoint, one of the largest dissatisfiers of our office is that people feel like they don't hear back about what happens to people that they report. And so what our office has done in terms of making a conscious decision about it is that we will report back to people that tell us about cases that this case has been addressed to the satisfaction of the Office of Professional Excellence. I'll be honest with you, for a lot of you, that's going to be very unsatisfying. To some extent, you want to know whether that person that you reported got, right? And we don't believe in that. We don't believe in public shaming. We don't believe that everybody deserves to hear other people's dirty laundry. And so, unfortunately, that's still going to be a dissatisfier, but we're at least letting you know that something was done and that our office has addressed the issue.
For ongoing cases, this action plan is developed by the Professionalism Executive Committee that will be showing here in 1 second. And the intention for this action plan is to identify specific recommendations that is unique to each individual.
We wanted to talk briefly about anonymity and confidentiality. We know that the School of Medicine is a hierarchical structure, and there's some people that are at the bottom of the pyramid. We focus mainly on students and residents from that bottom of the pyramid component. And what we want to do is try and protect people as much as possible. One component that goes into every single discussion that we have with every person that comes into our office as a respondent is that there cannot be any retribution associated with a case report. In fact, we tell people that they shouldn't talk about it, they shouldn't ask other people about it, because the fact of the matter is that some component of that may be seen as retribution in itself. However, there are other mechanisms that we can use to assist people that are reporters. So, for example, if something happens in a large group setting, then we can always ask for other people if they saw anything that was unusual or inappropriate. And that way we have multiple people that respond, and that way it keeps that one person that initially reported anonymous. Along the same lines, for students, we can always wait until after their grade is in. If they're even matching into a certain specialty, we can wait until match has occurred to make sure that they have that protection going forward.
The decision for the OPE to take any action, however, is completely up to the individual who is making that report. There are a few exceptions to that. Again, we're a state-funded institution, so harm to self, harm to others, or situations in which either discriminatory actions or harassment have taken place. The OPE is required to take action, and then oftentimes we'll triage that to a different office. And again, when we sit down and we talk with the individual reporter, the decision is completely up to the reporter on whether or not we do take action. However, if we really want to try to change an individual's behavior, the best way to do that is to provide them feedback in a very non-judgmental and respectful fashion. So this next slide is the makeup of our Professionalism Executive Committee. Whenever we show this slide and people start reading through this, I get that collective, oh my gosh, these are the individuals that sit on your Professionalism Executive Committee or the PEC? Yes, they are. They are a very powerful group of individuals. This group is a leadership that is on campus, and the intention here is that they have a collective institutional knowledge of the organizations and also have fairly intimate information and insight in regard to a situation, and so therefore we can provide resources more specifically to individuals. The makeup of the Professionalism Executive Committee, as listed here, are the directors of the office, Senior Associate Dean for Academic Affairs, Clinical Affairs, University Risk Management Director, the CMO of both Children's and the Adult Hospital, risk management, and finally, legal counsel. And our Professionalism Executive Committee does review each case, and we review this on twice a month.
We also wanted to let you all know about our conflict of interest policy. So briefly, as you can expect, anything that deals with the Department of Emergency Medicine, I am excluded from the management of the case, and that's when Abby and Josette get to deal with it. Anything that deals with the Division of Pulmonary and Critical Care or the administration of the Department of Medicine, Josette and I get to deal with. And then anything that deals with psychiatry ends up coming to Abby and I. Our PEC committee members also have a recusal process specifically for anything that's a personal relationship or any amorous relationship up to 5 years after the end of that relationship. 7. I'm sorry, 7. Trying to shorten it by 2.
The Professional Executive Committee members are also required to disclose their professional relationships. As you know, this is a leadership on campus, so it would be expected that they have several relationships. And so it was important for us as we came on board to establish a recusal and disclosure process. So for each member, if there's an individual, either the reporter or respondent that is well known to an individual, they do have to sort of raise their hand and say, I have this particular relationship with this individual. They can provide context and maybe some collateral information, but they have to refrain from either advocating or any decision-making process.
It's also important for us to point out that our Professionalism Executive Committee undergoes annual implicit bias training. The reason for that is that we want to be conscious of the implicit biases that we have so that we can hopefully address them in terms of how we address our cases across the board. As we said beforehand, we aren't going to tell you about individual cases and what happens to your individual case if you're a reporter, but what we did commit is that we would show you the overall data in terms of what happens to people within our office and how often people get reported across the board. To remind you, this is the framework in terms of the professionalism pyramid and what level cases each are. And I have to preface my next slide in terms of the data with saying that there are a number of limitations. So this is like a poorly done research study, and we're going to talk about those limitations at the end. So if you can bear with us for a moment as we get through our data, we'd appreciate it.
So what is listed here is a pie chart that includes all the submissions during this time frame. And please note that the time frame between March of 2014 and September of 2018, that is not a typo. We are migrating to a different database, and that is requiring some manual labor, so it's going to take some time. We do have all the cases, however, most recently up until last week. And what you can see here is that we have a total of 423 individual cases that we are sharing with you today, and of that, 71% were a single incident or a single reporter. There were there were 2 individuals that had a total of 8 different cases that were submitted against them, and we'll go through our recidivism in here in just one moment.
We also wanted to look at who reports cases to us, because we are very cognizant of the fact that some people may use our office as a punishment for others, a way to make sure that they're getting other people in trouble, and we wanted to make sure that there weren't some people that were reporting over and over and over again. And as you can see, a majority of folks report just a single case. There were 4 people that reported 3 cases total.
We wanted to focus on the recidivism, and here you see is a total of 49 individuals that were reported to our office more than a single time. And yes, you do see 2 individuals here all the way to your right that were reported to our office 8 different times. Just bear with us. We will go through what some of the limitations of our data is.
We did want to talk about what happens to people in terms of where it is that they get referred. And as you can see, there's a large number of places that different people get referred. Human resources is still our number one referral area. We refer people to communications training. There are letters of expectation that are issued, and we'll go over those numbers in just a moment. Letters to the medical staff board, behavioral health referrals, risk management, CPHP, et cetera. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, so for the takeaway, the vast majority of our cases of the respondents, we only hear about once. However, of those 49 repeated responders, there were 25 letters of expectation that were drafted in response to their repeated referrals to our office. Of these, 37% have left our institution or have been removed from a position of authority within the School of Medicine.
So here's the limitations. So the first is that our prior database only used every single case that came in. So that meant that if one person was reported, even if there was no professionalism associated with that issue, it still got logged into our system that way. Secondarily, if there was one person that was reported for a single incident, but there were 8 people that made that same report, so someone says something inappropriate in this exact forum, and there are 8 people that report them, that would be logged as 8 different cases. So as a result, those cases, those 2 people that had 8 cases reported against them may not have been 8 individual different cases. In addition, one of the components is that we're using older data. Abby and I took on this role about 1.5 years ago, and so some of the cases that we were processing through, we weren't 100% certain exactly how they were addressed or how they were considered, and as such, we weren't able to classify them one way or the other, which is our goal with our new data system. During our transition, there may have been some cases that were missed. And then lastly, the outcomes that we looked at from a School of Medicine perspective were based on faculty affairs telling us whether people had appointments within the School of Medicine. It's always possible that someone still has an affiliation, but doesn't actually have a School of Medicine appointment.
So under our office, it's the resilience program. And as you see here, it's under renovations. The 2 directors of the office recently stepped down to take a promotion at a different institution or to focus their time and attention at their local institution. But we did want to make sure that you had resources that were available. And I know the Department of Anesthesiology is very cutting edge in providing resources for resilience here on campus. So here's information if you see an individual that's in crisis. And of course, for the residency program, there is a mental and behavioral health program as well. The next slide is our contact information. And then finally, individuals that we reach out to support our faculty here on campus.
So before we move on for the second half of our presentation, any questions that we can answer for you all about our process or how our office works? Okay, moving on. So now we're going to talk about patient safety in the learning environment, and this is done in association with the Alliance for Professionalism in Medicine, which is a group of residents, faculty, and students who work together to try and improve professionalism on campus. We did want to have a special thanks to the Anesthesiology Professionalism Committee, which is actually meeting on September 30th. And the focus of this Professionalism Committee is going to be tasked with recognition of excellence. We know that one of the things that we do a good job of is focusing on the negative. We need to do a better job of focusing on the positive. And so across campus, we are instituting a program to recognize excellence and professionalism. In addition, the hope is that this group is going to help us with educational endeavors going forward.
So this, sorry, I just got tongue-tied. So this next part of our presentation, you will be utilizing Poll Everywhere. And this part of the presentation, we will be presenting to you a curriculum in regard, that's called KIND, and it was developed by the University of Irvine. The University of Irvine has submitted and received a grant from the AMA to address curriculum to try to help mitigate and decrease student mistreatment in academic schools of medicine. We are one of 6 institutions that is piloting the curriculum currently.
It's also important to note that the Poll Everywhere responses that you all submit are completely anonymous. We are not saving the data at all, so please do not think that we're going to use this for some ulterior motive. So if everybody can take a moment to connect to Poll Everywhere.
All right.
Everybody connected? Sort of connected. Okay. So let's see how we do. What's your current position? Okay. Some people are changing their status now.
It's still going up.
No.
All right. The AAMC defines student mistreatment as inclusive of public humiliation, physical harm, performance of personal services or SCUT, sexual harassment, gender discrimination, ethnic discrimination, sexual orientation discrimination, and offensive behaviors that are based on personal beliefs or characteristics.
So next question is reflecting on your own medical training, did you experience any of these categories if you are a med student during your time as a med student or beforehand? So 53% saying yes. This is actually not surprising. Nationally, the data says that 40% of all folks have had some sort of problems with mistreatment. And this number has remained relatively stable over the past 6 years, 38 to 42% nationally across the board. In fact, we're going to show you the University of Colorado data, but University of Colorado has actually been higher across the board for a period of time. We know that there is no question that mistreatment can lead to stress, burnout, depression, substance use, symptoms of post-traumatic distress, and then there's no question that it can also lead to a lack of empathy. One thing that's been shown over and over and over again is student mistreatment leads to people not being willing to report when they see either a medical error or see the potential for a medical error, which can obviously affect patient safety. We did want to show you the University of Colorado data. So this is question 20 on the GQ survey, which is the survey of all graduating medical students. And it says, for each of the following behaviors, please indicate the frequency with you boy, I'm having trouble too, which you personally experienced during medical school.
So what you see here for question 20 is what is that disconnect between professional behaviors and attitudes seen on their clinical rotations. And what you can see here is that approximately half report almost never seeing a disconnect between the professional behaviors and expectations, but the other half, there is another half approximately that does see this on a fairly regular basis, either sometimes or fairly often.
And it's not surprising that these numbers haven't changed because this ends up being a vicious cycle where a student is victimized, the student or the resident then feels desensitized, and then they actually perpetrate the exact same behavior going forward. And so we want to try and break this cycle and change the way that people approach these. We wanted to show you the CU mistreatment index data. And the fact of the matter is that the University of Colorado used to be actually dramatically higher than the national average, one of the highest schools in the nation in terms of mistreatment.
But over the course of the past 5 years, there has been a collective commitment and effort to try to address student mistreatment. And one of the reasons why our office was codified approximately 5 years ago was in direct response to this extremely high report by students. However, we're very pleased to see this past year's AAMC questionnaire did have the total reports at lower than the national average for the first time, which is really fantastic. However, lots and lots and lots of opportunity to continue to improve, of course.
It's sad when we are excited about the fact that 40% of our students experience some sort of mistreatment. And so really our goal is to change the learning environment so that we have a learning environment that's free of unprofessional behaviors and that promotes respectful interactions for the ultimate benefit of our patients. So next question is if you experienced mistreatment as a medical student, did you report it? So as everyone can see, the numbers are much, much smaller in terms of reporting. And one of the questions that we often get is so, Jeff, are you telling people that they should report everything that comes in? Well, no, what we would prefer is that people have direct interaction and talk about something immediately. Hey, Abby, I can't believe that you said that. That was kind of offensive to me. I didn't really appreciate it. So that way we can talk about it in a collegial fashion. Now, we also know that some people aren't going to feel comfortable doing that. And so as a result, our office exists for those people that don't feel comfortable having that direct conversation. But there's no question that immediate peer-to-peer feedback makes more of a difference than anything else.
So since students are reluctant to report mistreatment, we're here to ask for your help to help support our students. And oftentimes when we see student mistreatment, it can certainly be a signal if there is something else that is ongoing that our residents, fellows are experiencing and our faculty are experiencing as well. We know that most faculty and residents will never engage in abusive behaviors, but we would like to see an evaluation or at least reporting of these inappropriate behaviors by others.
So the University of California, Irvine developed this KIND framework. And the purpose of the KIND framework is to sort of focus where exactly errors occur so that people can figure out how they want to present things going forward. So the first component is knowledge, which is knowledge sharing, which is the provision of specific facts as opposed to being vague, giving people specific feedback on what exactly it is that they're doing so that they can change going forward. Inclusive pertains to the active engagement of students as members of the healthcare team. Non-discriminatory means being mindful of unconscious biases and avoidance of prejudicial treatment based on gender, ethnicity, sexual orientation, or personal beliefs. And then developmentally appropriate, meaning that you're trying to teach things for those specific learners based on what level they are.
So we now have a series of cases that we want to show you that, that will be evaluated utilizing the KIND framework.
After each video, what we're going to do is we're going to have people discuss, and our hope is that you all will engage in this discussion in terms of what went wrong with certain cases, what element of the KIND framework was being violated, and what people could have done differently in those exact situations. So here's our first video.
Hi, are you the new medical student?
Yes, I'm Crystal.
Awesome, Dr. Weekman. All right, so have you ever scrubbed into a procedure before?
No, this is my first time.
Awesome. So even though we're not in the operating room, this is still going to be a sterile procedure. I'm sterile. Patients like get sterilely prepped. You're sterile. So at this point, you can go ahead and touch anything. You're going to be helping me do this procedure. We're going to be focusing on the right inguinal area, the right groin. So for you in that position, we might need to have you come a little bit closer so you can kind of lean over and see what we're doing, but you'll help me out and I'll kind of walk you through. Dr. Meza will be joining us and he could probably get us set up. So go ahead and move forward a little bit while I get everything set up here. Thanks, Dr. Meza. So I'm going to point out some of the structures here as I get all the rest of the tools ready. I don't know if you can see this ligament on this side. Can you see what we're pointing at over here?
No.
So why don't you go ahead and move in a little bit more. That way you can kind of see what we're doing because I'm going to give you some tools here so we can get everything set up. How about now? Can you see a little bit better there?
Yes, I can.
All right. So for this first question, have any of you experienced a similar situation as a medical student? Okay, we have about 10% that said yes. So what form of mistreatment did you all observe in this vignette? Okay, the majority chose sexual harassment. And then finally, using that KIND framework, what element of KIND was missing from this or needs to be addressed?
along the same line. Along the same lines, how could the attending or the student or the resident have interacted differently to prevent this from happening?
Don't touch the student.
What could the resident have said to change things? How many residents are here? Quite a few. Is it easy to give somebody feedback on something that's unprofessional? No. It's hard. There's no question. Who would it have been hardest for in this scenario? The student. Yeah, no question. What could the resident have said?
As you can tell, Jeff and myself are very comfortable sitting in awkward silence. I think the silence does highlight the hierarchy in academic medicine for trainees to be able to step in and provide their attendings feedback. Sometimes it's very hard, even if it's the right thing to do, and it's one of the reasons why our office exists, is so that it gives individuals, excuse me, who are not equal in the hierarchy, that opportunity to provide a report, and that we, Jeff and myself, can provide that peer-to-peer feedback for that individual so their behavior can change in the future. Okay, move on to the next one. I heard, yep.
It is John's second week on a busy inpatient medicine service. One of the female staff made a comment to the team last week that she thought John was cute, and
So the question was, what feedback, if I had been in that situation, what feedback could I have given? What I would have said is, here, let me step out of the way so that you can see better. Or, I'm sorry, I'm feeling uncomfortable because your hands are on my hips. Can you not touch me, please? That's really hard to do, particularly as a medical student or a resident, but it's the right thing to do, but it's done in a very respectful fashion, and it gives the individual knowledge of what they're doing is causing discomfort. And it's done, as long as it's done respectfully, oftentimes the individual will recognize what they're doing and either apologize, but oftentimes are embarrassed as well. But giving that feedback, I think, is important. Mm-hmm.
this gossip was quickly picked up by his teammates.
Hey. Lady Killer. Hey. Awesome, man.
How's it going?
It's going well. How are you doing?
All right. Just working through this stuff.
Yeah, I know. We need to know the CBC results on patient Gomez. Did you get that back?
Yeah, everything looked normal.
Okay, good. All right, great. I will talk to the family about that.
All right.
We are getting slammed. So we have 3 new cases in the emergency room. Yeah. And are you okay working on this case right now?
Yeah, we're just about to wrap up.
Okay, I'm going to go start working through those cases,
right.
And then hopefully later on today you can join in and see one of the patients.
Okay.
All right.
Sounds perfect.
But, that doesn't take away from your number one job.
Yeah, what's that?
You know what it is. Come on. I can't believe she's interested in you.
I know.
Today's the day you're going to do it, man.
Yeah.
You're going to ask her out. I know it.
It is what it is.
I know. No, it's amazing. It's a miracle as well. You're just an MS3.
No.
You're the luckiest guy in the world. So make it happen. I want you to make sure you ask her out today. Today's the day, okay? No more excuses, right?
Alrighty.
All right, man.
Yeah, sounds good.
Awesome.
Take care.
I'll see you later.
All right.
Later that day, the senior resident returns to the workroom.
Wow. It is really crazy down there, Lady Killer.
Okay.
So yeah, we'll need your help for sure, and maybe you can run and get dinner for the team because it's going to be going long tonight. But yeah, so we'll get you another case. Don't worry about that. I want to know though, how'd that number one job go? Did she say yes?
We didn't actually talk. I'm honestly not that interested.
Oh, come on! What is your problem? This is like on a golden platter.
I know. I'm really not that interested.
Are you married?
No, I'm not married. No,
I
I'm
mean,
just not interested.
Are you gay or something?
Yeah, I am gay.
Really? Yeah. Okay, well, I guess that's your deal. Good luck with it. I'm going to come back half hour. We'll go down to ED together, okay?
Sounds good.
Oh, wow.
All right. Have you personally experienced or observed a similar situation? Okay, about the same rate as the first vignette. And what form of mistreatment was observed in this particular case? This is great. The spread of responses does indicate that there were a variety of comments that were made that were multiple forms of mistreatment or the perception of mistreatment. Good.
So what could have been done differently? So similar to the first case, I guess the easy statement would have been if this person hadn't hassled the med student about stuff, that would have been the easiest one, right? What could the med student have said? Yeah, can you repeat that?
Simply state that they weren't comfortable talking about their personal life at work.
Yeah, definitely an option. Do you think if the resident had known that that would have been an appropriate thing? I mean, was there any question that that was inappropriate? If he had known that the student was gay, would that have changed anything? No, it was inappropriate regardless, right? Straight, gay, married, not, doesn't matter. Not something that you should be talking about at work. Okay. I see that we're right at time. You think we have time for the last case or no?
Do I ask you?
Yeah, they're saying yes. Let's go ahead.
Okay. All right, next case.
That's forward.
Yep.
Can't see much of anything. All right, a little more anteriorly, please.
How's that?
Still not very good. We're in a little bit of a rush here. We have like 30 more patients to see. Let's get going.
I think this picture is pretty good.
No, I think your probe is backwards. You have to have the indicator towards the left.
Are you sure? This is the way that we were taught in our ultrasound class, and I did really well in that class.
More like this. Flip the probe around, please.
I'm not sure that that's right. I think I have the probe correct. This picture looks perfect to me. Ow, you're hurting me.
Still not very good. Come on.
I think it looks great.
I can't see anything.
Ow!
That was making me uncomfortable. All right. Goodness. Okay, about similar reports from the previous two. And what form of mistreatment was observed in this case? Okay, about 85% said physical harm. When she kept saying ow, may have been situational awareness coaching that individual might need. All right.
So once again, what could be done differently here? What could the faculty member have done differently? Yeah. Sorry.
Could have asked for the probe and demonstrated how they wanted it done.
What about the whole component of the student saying, well, I did really well in my ultrasound course, so I know I'm doing this right? What do you guys think about that statement? Have any of you had conflicts at all with anybody else ever around medicine? Of course, right? I mean, that's a standard thing. And there are going to be people that are going to have conflicting arguments, right? But if the student had said, boy, you know, I don't really see what it is that is an issue, could you help me? Or could you demonstrate what a good image would look like? Those would all be alternatives. Along the same lines, the faculty member needs to be more specific about what it is that the student needed to do differently. That's not a good image. Give me a better image. That's not helpful. And it's not instructive. So there are a number of different things in this case, aside from the fact that the attending was physically hurting the person.
How is this case, the physical interaction, different from the first case? And is there ever a time where you do need to have physical interaction with a trainee as an attending? So the short answer is yes. As an intensivist, when I'm teaching my residents and students how to do either bronchoscopies, placing central lines, doing intubations, there are situations in which I do have to tell them, I'm going to reposition your hands. But I always tell them, I'm going to do something. I'm going to reposition your hands. So giving them that forewarning that you do have to have some physical interaction, and it's also very acceptable during procedural training. So keep that in mind. But always just let the individual be aware that you're going to have a physical interaction.
Along the same lines, if there was a patient safety issue, then it shouldn't be you manipulating somebody else's hands. It should be you taking over.
process of making sure the mask fits well and that. How do you go about it now? Because that's what we do all day long. We pull the mask and we lines.
So the question was, you all in anesthesiology, you're working in very close encounters and you're doing multiple procedures throughout the day with trainees. And you very well may forget to inform them or let them be aware that you are going to adjust their hands. So what do you do in that situation? I think always coming back, if you remember it later, saying, I'm sorry I had to reposition your hands, but I needed to because of X, Y, and Z. So you can turn it into a learning situation in which you say later, I needed to move your hands to improve the seal, etc.
Yes.
Most of the training's going to get up there in a couple of minutes to go to the OR. If you could give, obviously, I thought also the silence was striking the question. To me, it's indicative that trainees do not feel comfortable speaking up, even in a hypothetical
scenario.
What advice or what resources would be available to trainees so that they could feel more empowered to speak up when they feel they have to?
So I think there's a number of different avenues. The question was essentially, how do you make it so that trainees feel more comfortable talking about these sorts of issues in real time? I think the number one way of doing this is to facilitate relationships. And there's no question that if you have a relationship with someone that is a good relationship, then you're much more willing to be open and honest about things. So Abby tells me things all the time about my behavior, with no concern because we have a good relationship. So I think that would be number one. Number two is that there are communications courses. The Excellence in Communications course, that's one of the elements that's offered by UC Health and the School of Medicine jointly, is an opportunity to be able to discuss difficult conversations like this in an open environment, and gives you some additional resources in terms of how you manage those sorts of things.
I think for residents and trainees in general, reaching out to their program director, and certainly our office as well, we can certainly help coach to find the right language and how to give feedback to the individual. But you're absolutely right. The lack of engagement is striking. I don't think that it's necessarily indicative of the early hour, but simply indicative of how do you provide feedback. Providing feedback is hard, but there are multiple resources that are available for trainees to come seek help. And our office, again, was created in an effort to try to promote professionalism and try to decrease and mitigate mistreatment. We can't do that without knowing what the individual events are. So our office is a very safe space to come to talk about events, and we're here to support you. And again, we will not take action unless the reporter feels comfortable doing so.
So we realize that we are dramatically over time. We wanted to thank you all for giving us this time to talk to you. With that being said, we're happy to take any other questions that you may have.